Hey you guys, welcome to my November 30th DVD update, where I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, if you enjoyed this video, definitely give this video a thumbs up. Let me know below what you thought of the titles that I talked about, any titles you suggest I talk about for future updates. Now the first ones I got from Scream Factory, Shot Factory, Scream Factory line. Now this is one I really liked, haven't watched this in a long time, and it's produced by Empire Pictures, and it's Crawlspace. Now there's two Crawlspace movies. The one that I talked about a lot as well was a 70s TV movie about a guy, like a drifter, living in this old couple's house. This one is the one with Klaus Kinski, and he's the tenant of this apartment building, and he's basically crawling around the vents and spying on all the women. Now the thing that's interesting about this movie is the movie was shot on the sets that they built for the movie Troll. Troll was shot right before this, and I think it's like a couple months later. They wanted to try and use the sets for something else. They didn't really know what to do with them, so they kind of wrote this movie around the sets that they had built for the movie Troll. And I like it. I like both of them, though. It's kind of interesting, though, because when I was watching this, I didn't know that till I was watching the features on this and the commentary and things like that. But I didn't know that, but I kind of thought, looking at it when I was watching it, I was like, that looks like the thing from Troll, and it was. But like I said, the movie's basically about Klaus Kinski, and he owns this apartment building, and he basically only rents it out to women, and he's always crawling around the vents, spying on them when they're sleeping with people, and he's basically, when they're in the bath, he's always just spying around, sneaking around. He has this knife that he clicks on the wall, makes it act like there's rats in there. He even lets out rats when new tenants come to make him believe that the place is infested. And it's basically just about him with this obsession. And there's also these undertones because his father was a Nazi, and Klaus Kinski also was a doctor, and who ended up being, basically like fired or let go for things that he did. So there's all these kind of twisted undertones to the movie. A really, really good theme, the music theme in this movie too. To me, though, I would highly recommend this. There's a scene that's with Klaus Kinski when he's going in the vent on this kind of like contraption that he made, so it makes him sort of fly through it. This is an amazing movie, and to me, the picture quality on this one, I don't know, something about it was amazing. Like, it was cleaned up so well and looked so good. It looked better than I ever thought this movie would have ever looked. It has a commentary on here with the director, interview with the effects artist. There's also a thing on here called a short film, Please Kill Mr. Kinski, and which is a film that the director made a number of years back, talking about all the problems that he had with Klaus Kinski on the set. And Klaus Kinski didn't want to be directed. He basically didn't really want any, and he had all these problems, and people, had to call him certain names, they couldn't say this, and if they, he would have these panic attacks and scream at everybody. It's a really pretty interesting thing. And, it's interesting, too, that this movie ever got done, because they were talking about, like, how one of the producers was talking about killing Klaus Kinski and collecting the insurance money. It's pretty crazy, like, how much they disliked him. But I would definitely recommend this one. This is a really weird, creepy movie. Like I said, too, has really, really good music. And the next one from Scream Factory, as well as The Beast Within. This one I had not heard much about. I always remember, though, the cover to it. The guy in, kind of like the jean jacket. This movie was okay. The movie's basically about, in the beginning of the movie, this one woman ends up getting, attacked and raped in the woods by this weird creature. 17 years later, she's with her husband, and the son is very sick and having all these kind of problems, and is basically on death's door. And they are wondering, is he really the father, her husband, or was whoever it was that raped her out in the woods the father? So they kind of go back to the town to try and figure out, if, who this person was that did it, and see if they can kind of get some information about him. At the same time, the son is kind of going through all these changes, all these kind of weird things are happening. They even say in the trailer that the last 30 minutes of the movie, the transformation is, the best thing in the movie. And that really was the most interesting stuff. But it really was a peculiar thing that he's transforming into. Really, really good effects on the transformations. To me, though, the movie was just a little bit slow and not my absolute favorite. I liked it, but when you compare it to like other kind of like Wolf or those kind of transformation movies, there's been a lot of other interesting ones that I liked a little bit more. On the subject though of like Wolf movies, Scream Factory is going to be putting out, I just heard about this, Ginger Snaps, the first movie, which is really exciting to finally have a widescreen version, because in the US it was only ever in full screen. So definitely looking forward to that. I would definitely recommend checking this out, but like I said though, it's not like an amazing movie. It has commentary on here with the writer Tom Holland and the director and actor. The one actor though was so hyper in the commentary. The next one is 2 TV movies that Scream Factory put out, which I like that they're starting to do this, because there's a lot of really good 70s TV movies. Back then, the 70s kind of always had kind of weird qualities to it, and they kind of took things a little further than you would have thought. There's 2 on here, are The Initiation of Sarah and Are You in the House Alone? The main one I want to talk about in this is The Initiation of Sarah, which is basically about these 2 girls that end up going to going to college. They're going to try out for like the sororities and things like that. The one sister's like the real pretty one. Everyone's kind of taking to her at the sorority. The other one, they're kind of like giving her crap and like basically like, telling her to go to like the Maggie Moos, like that kind of like fraternity, that kind of stuff. I always hate that kind of stuff when they do that to people, like put them in those things and go, this and hazing and all that kind of stuff. They made good movies about it, but I myself would never want to go through any of that business. But Morgan Fairchild is kind of like the head of this the sorority in the movie. But the one sister they give all the crap to has this kind of power. It's kind of like Carrie, where she can control things with her mind and things like that. It's basically about her kind of using these powers and kind of, you can't really talk too much about it, but there were some pretty cool scenes, and there's a lot of cool character actors make appearances in this one as well. And I thought Morgan Fairchild was really good in this. She did a lot of cool kind of movies back then. Shelley Winters is also in the movie as kind of the den mother of the one sorority, and she was kind of over the top in this one. Like, I really like Shelley Winters, especially in Who Slew Annie Rue, and there's been a lot of things I really like, but man, she played at the end of this movie this like kind of weird over the top that I don't think I'd ever seen her do. The next one from Paramount, I just finished watching this a few minutes ago. It's the Naomi Watts Robin Wright film Adore. This is a very interesting movie. A lot of people are gonna, like, when they hear what it's about and stuff, are gonna be like, "Hey," but basically the movie's about these the girls who have been friends pretty much their entire lives. They show there's some interesting transitions in this movie too, and they show like how they age and things like that. It starts with them as friends when they're like at the beach, and then it's like probably about 20 years later, and kind of ages, but it's basically about these 2 women who are really good friends and basically start sleeping with each other's kids, the 2 sons. So it's kind of like the one, and they both know about it, and they're both okay about it, and they're both kind of like this affair going on when the one, we watch sleeping with the other one's son, and it's like vice versa, and it's kind of like okay, but then there's kind of like things that come along in their lives that cause kind of turmoil and like issues and things like that come up. To me, though, it was a very well done movie. It was kind of sad, too. And there were some things that happened with the one's husband. And it kind of one of those movies where things kind of go full circle in a weird way. When you really have to read into this movie, and it makes a lot more sense when you look at just about the life, and I don't know, just kind of screwing things up and things like that. I thought it was a very well done movie, though. Really amazing cinematography in this. Naomi Watts, though, is always good in everything. I would definitely recommend checking this out, but it's definitely not a movie for everybody, but was very, very well done. The next ones I got from Disney are The Great Muppet Caper and Muppet Treasure Island, the new Blu-ray DVD combo. This is the first time, as far as I know, that both of these have been released on Blu-ray. The one I want to talk the most about is The Great Muppet Caper, which I have not watched that one in so many years and forgot how good it was. I probably hadn't seen it in probably like 18 years. I mean, it's been years since I've seen this. I remember watching it on, like VHS. I think I used to rent it in the video store. I mean, it was that long ago that I watched it. And I forgot, too, how with the Muppet movies, especially the early ones, even though they were kind of, kids could watch them, the humor in them, there was so much kind of adult kind of humor, not like dirty or anything like that, but just like this stuff that adults could really watch it. And it's nice when you see that kind of movies. Nowadays there's kind of like a lack of that. when you see those kind of movies. Disney still does that, which I like. They kind of, have a good balance between it. Pretty much 90% of their movies, or have, at least that I would say, have been like that, with the exception of a couple of them. The movie's basically about, though, Fozzie and Kermit, and they're, they basically work for a newspaper, and they're investigating this woman whose diamond was stolen. They end up going to England to get the story on it. They end up having to stay in this sort of dumpy hotel, and that's where all the other Muppets are. And they kind of do I like how they kind of bring all the Muppets into it. And then some of the Muppet characters that kind of didn't catch on, and you don't see as much, some of the side ones. I don't know, to me it was a really fun one. The stuff I really liked was the stuff with John Cleese and his wife. Like, a lot of really good cameos in this. To me, though, these are really, really good movies. Charles Grodin is also in it. Always have been a fan of Charles Grodin, especially, you guys know I always talk about Clifford, which hopefully at some point hits Blu-ray. But I would definitely recommend this one. The movies look really good on Blu-ray. Just really fun, movies. Definitely looking forward to seeing the new Muppets one. The next one from Warner Brothers is The Getaway, starring Ethan Hawke and Selena Gomez. And this one is an okay movie. This is basically a movie, though, where it's way more about the car and the stunts and the things like that than the actual movie. It doesn't really... One of those kind of movies where it doesn't really matter too much of what's happening. There's another movie that was all set in a car, I think like Vehicle 17, which I liked a little bit more just because of the setting and, where it was set. This is basically, though, Ethan Hawke, and he gets this call, and this guy's like, I've got your wife, and he ends up having to get in this car, and, he has to be basically driving around and doing what this guy says. It's basically this guy on the phone just like, do this and do that, like all that kind of stuff. And then he's in the car, in this parking lot. Selena Gomez ends up holding him up, and then the guy's like, bring her in the car with you. And, so it's basically them driving around where it's like kind of hearing the guy, and the guy has, cameras mounted all in the car, can hear everything they're doing, and there's cameras all over the place. But there's some really, really well done, chase scenes and car stunts and things like that in it, because it was all done practical, which was pretty cool to see a movie like this done without CGI and done in that kind of, feel to it. But that's basically the extent of what the movie was. I thought, though, Selena Gomez and Ethan Hawke both did a good job. To me, though, Selena Gomez's best movie has been Spring Breakers. I think this is one you should probably, check it out, but more of like a rental one. The next one is a really good movie. This is the new edition of it. This is Argo, the extended edition. This is called the declassified edition. The main difference with this one is this is the extended cut of the film. And I think this is a year after the last release, because this one won Best Picture of, 2012. And it also has in here a mini poster, for the movie within the movie that they were, said they were making. And then it has a document on here about kind of like the map of the locations and things like that. But if you, guys haven't seen this movie, it's directed by Ben Affleck. Basically, it's a true story that was kind of like a story that was kind of only, declassified recently about this. I never great to explain the details of it, but it's in Iran, and there was this war thing going on, and I'm sorry I'm not great with the details of this, but the Americans end up having to kind of hide out with the Canadian embassy, and there's no really way to get them out because, you can't get in and out of the country. So they kind of, Ben Affleck, who's a CIA, in the CIA, comes up with this idea to make it as if he's, a film production crew coming in there, scouting locations, and kind of that's his way to get these people out of the country and get them back. And John Goodman and Alan Arkin are in it as kind of the Hollywood types that are helping him plan out to make a fake movie. To me, though, I thought this was a really well done movie. And like a lot of people say, too, Ben Affleck, his best movies have been the things that he's directed. I think that he gets to kind of do parts that really work for him well when he gets to direct them as well. I would definitely recommend this one. This edition, though, is about 9 minutes longer. But I would definitely recommend this movie if you haven't seen this one. This is a great new edition of the film. And the next one I got from Sony is The Smurfs 2, which was actually a pretty fun movie. The best stuff in it, though, is Hank Azaria and the talking cat, which is, the guy who's done a voice in like a million movies. And he also did the voice in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey of Station. person, you would know this voice. Like when it comes to this sort of weird voice, this guy has done it for everything. Even like Cat's Eye is the creature in it. Like, I don't know, but the movie's basically about the Smurfette, who was basically, created by Gargamel, and, who was originally, she was bad, and then, Papa Smurf turned her good and turned her into a real Smurf, and, Gargamel ends up, wants to bring her back because she knows the secrets to turn all these kind of Smurfs that he creates that are not really Smurfs into real Smurfs, because he needs to use their essence, because now he is in basically like a David Blaine or a Chris Angel having this kind of magic show, and he's traveling all around in Paris and everywhere, and pretty much needs their essence in order to use their power to do these illusions and things like that. But then Smurfette ends up getting kidnapped, and then they have to end up coming back to Paris to try and get her back. I thought this was a pretty fun movie. I actually ended up liking this one a lot more than I thought I was going to. It's one of those movies. It's just a fun, silly kids movie, but it's also, I think, adults would like some of the things in it too. I would definitely recommend checking it out. It looks really good on Blu-ray. There's also a 3D version as well. It has also on here mini movie on here and some featurettes and some deleted scenes. I would check this one out though. The next one from Sony as well, and this is one of those kind of movies that I don't always like these kind of movies, but I mainly wanted to see it because Josh Peck was in it. I actually saw this in theaters as well, and thought it was pretty good. It's not like an absolutely amazing movie, but if you like these kind of movies, I think you'd like it. And it's Battle of the Year. This is another one. There's also a 3D version that's available. I saw it in 3D. Didn't notice, when I saw it in theaters, didn't notice a huge thing with the 3D. But the movie's basically about like these b-boy, which is kind of like competition, which is kind of like break dancing and all that kind of swiggling around and all that. You guys know what I'm talking about. But it's basically about this guy who's kind of a washed up basketball coach, and things aren't really going well for the guy anymore. And the one guy who works with this b-boy team ends up bringing him on to try and get him to win the big dance-off tournament, which basically America's never won this thing for 15 years. So the guy ends up kind of putting together this dream team of all the best, dancers all around, the country, trying to make it so it's like, picking and choosing the absolute best people. And it's basically about them training, and Josh Peck is like the team manager. Like I said, this is not a movie for everybody, but I've really been a fan of Josh Peck for years, ever since like Mean Creek and Spun and things like that. So I pretty much watch everything that he does. One of my favorite ones he did recently was the ATM movie, that horror movie, which was really pretty good. Hopefully he does more horror movies. I definitely would check this out though. I thought it was a fun movie. The next one from Sony as well is the Mortal Instruments City of Bones, and it's kind of a movie like a similar vibe to like kind of like a Twilight kind of vibe, but a little bit more like a goth kind of feel to it. It's about this girl who's with her mom, and she's kind of like seeing these kind of visions of this symbol, and the mom isn't really kind of telling her about it. And like she sees her writing it down, the mom's like throwing the paper away. She ends up going to this club with a friend of hers, ends up seeing this one guy kill somebody at the club, and then by this happening, basically these people who have been looking for the mother for years end up tracking her down, and the mother ends up getting taken. It's the girl with the guy that she witnessed kill the one person in the club, kind of going and trying to find the mother and where she is. And it's all about like shadow hunters and things like that. It's one of those things that's kind of difficult to explain, but like I said, it's got that kind of Twilight vibe to it. But to me, though, it was more interesting than Twilight. It's kind of hard to explain, though. It's like, they're kind of, like, they're sort of killing the demons and things like that. I don't know. I really can't explain it well. It's one of those kind of things that really is tough for me to explain. Certain movies are tough to explain. But it's got a bunch of different features on here. A bunch of featurettes and things like that. I would definitely recommend checking out, but it's one of those ones that's really good luck explaining. But it was not bad though. And Lily Collins is the star of it. Been a fan of Lily Collins, for a while now. She's everything. I think she's always done a good job, especially Stuck in Love recently was a really good one. Now this movie is finally on Blu-ray in the U.S. This movie has been out though. I think they shot this movie in like 2005, or maybe even 2004, because I think the car has like a sticker that says like expiring 2005. So this thing has been done for years. So it's kind of like Amber Heard going back in time with this thing. The movie is All the Boys Love Mandy Lane. Now, I've actually seen this movie before because I got the UK Blu-ray of this a number of years back. I really like this movie, though. I'm a fan of Amber Heard, especially like some of the horror movies she's done, like The Ward and the Girls on the Island. I can't remember the name of that one. Soon the Darkness Comes, something like that. And this is basically about this girl who's really popular at school, but she's kind of like the girl that all the guys like, and she's kind of like prudish, a little prudish and things like that. So they end up inviting her the one kid ends up inviting her to the farmhouse, for the weekend when they're all there, and they all kind of like, it's basically about them sort of just partying and things like that, but people start dropping dead one by one. So it's a kind of a, to me, it has a real kind of 80s style slasher vibe to it. Now, the reason why this movie has finally come out, though, is the director is Jonathan Levine, who did 50/50 and not Zombieland, 50/50 and Warm Bodies. Which Warm Bodies was a really, really good movie. To me, though, I thought this was pretty good, though. It's not an absolute perfect movie, but it really picks up the last, 30 minutes. Get really, really good. It's also kind of cool, too, to see a movie, too, shot on film, because these kind of movies now would never be shot on film. But since it was done in 2004 or 5 or so, they were still doing that then. I would recommend checking this out. I think it's a pretty good throwback movie. A lot of people, you're seeing this, that have gone on to do a lot of other stuff, too. But back then, a lot of them were just sort of starting out. Because this is before Amber Heard even did Pineapple Express. The next one from Anchor Bay as well is Ambushed. And this is a Dolph Lundgren, Vinnie Jones film. It's basically about, it's about kind of drug dealings and things like that. And Dolph Lundgren is this cop who's trying to bring down this drug, basically following around these drug people. I had a hard time following this one. I did not really love this one very much. Sometimes with these kind of movies, to me, are hit and miss. Sometimes I really, really like them, and other times I don't. And there wasn't that much into this movie that was really bringing me into it. And there was these two characters, and one, a lot of people said online too, was kind of like a Colin Farrell kind of guy, and I don't know. It's like I said, though, it was like a, Dolph Lundgren kind of following around and sort of spying on these drug dealers, trying to gather the evidence and bring them down, and Vinnie Jones is kind of like the leader of the whole thing. It's an okay one, but would not highly recommend this one. The next one from Fox is Paranoia. And this movie, I get kind of confused a little bit because Amber Heard also was in this other movie called Syrup. And they're kind of could mix together. You could cut pieces of them and get yourself really confused. But Paranoia is basically about, Liam Hemsworth, who's in the Hunger Games films. And this is his first big starring role movie. And it's basically about he's at this kind of, what is this kind of thing? It's like a tech company where he develops phones and things like that. Hopefully I'm not mixing that with the other one. But he ends up, getting fired from his job. And he works for, who does he work for? Gary Oldman. And he works for Gary Oldman, ends up getting fired from his job. And he's kind of still has the company credit card and is kind of pissed off about what happened. Ends up charging up the credit card, with bottle service at this club. And, putting all these charges to the card. And Gary Oldman basically, says, I know what you've done, and, you're going to go to jail for this. And he ends up saying, if you don't want to go to jail for this, you're going to have to spy on the rival company that Harrison Ford works for. So it's basically him having to get a job with this other company that Harrison Ford's at, and him meeting Amber Heard's character and kind of liking her, and because she works with the company, and kind of using her to get into the company and get the company secrets from them. Not a perfect movie. It was worth watching once or so. The best stuff in this, though, in my opinion, was the stuff with Richard Dreyfuss, who plays Liam Hemsworth's father in this. He wasn't in a whole lot of the movie, but really, always steals the show, and I've always been a fan of him for years. And the next one from E1, this is one that I've been really looking forward to seeing. It's Brian De Palma's new film, which is definitely in the style of a movie like Body Double, like his early films. And it's Passion with Rachel McAdams and Naomi Price. You know, Naomi Price, who was in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoos, the original films. And one movie that I really liked that I feel like not many people saw, Monitor. This movie, though, is basically about these two girls that are advertising executives. It's all about kind of like backstabbing. You know, like Naomi Price comes up with this commercial idea to promote this phone. Rachel McAdams ends up taking the credit for it. And it's kind of like all that kind of stuff going on. Some people said that Rachel McAdams' character is kind of like her character in Mean Girls. And it is a little bit like that. I like this movie. It's got a lot of really, really mixed opinions online. But the thing with Brian De Palma films is, you know, they're not the kind of movies that you're really going to understand. And it's about, you know, it deals with backstabbing and murder and all that kind of stuff and investigations and, you know, dreams and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like the kind of thing you can really, you know, explain very much. Especially if you've seen his early films, it's kind of a movie you have to experience it, and you kind of take it in and, you know, think of it how you want to think of it. And because you really don't know what exactly is happening with a lot of it. The thing that was really cool, too, was he got Pino D'Angelo to come back, who did the music in Body Double and a lot of his early films, did the music in Carrie, and, you know, also did the music in Crawlspace, which I talked about earlier in the update. His music is amazing, and it has that old vibe to it. He even has a music in this that sounds exactly like, just a little riff of the music, like a little thing that he does a couple times, like the music in Body Double when the guy is walking around the mall. I would definitely recommend checking this out. I love the, you know, red case on this too. To me, though, that, you know, if you like Brian De Palma films, the last one that he did that I really liked as well was Femme Fatale, which a lot of people didn't like that one as well. But like I said, with his movies, you like them or you don't. There's really not an in-between. The next one from Lionsgate is Primitive, which is basically about this guy who's this effects artist, and it starts with him in the beginning of the movie getting in this fight with the director, and basically like ends up hitting him, and the director's like going to press charges. The guy doesn't end up going to anger management, and, you know, he ends up going to see you know, the therapist, and it's played by Reggie Bannister, and Reggie Bannister puts him under this hypnosis spell. And kind of like in Office Space, when like every time you go there and get hypnosis, bad things end up happening. Like the one guy loses his ability to care in Office Space. In this one, he ends up awakening the inner beast, or the inner, you know, primate, or something like that. And it's basically the guy, from this happening, is able to project images of things, and he kind of projects the image of this beast. And it kind of like has a look to it. And I think it was supposed to kind of be like that. They kind of look like kind of a creature that he made. And I think some people didn't understand that when I was reading some of the reviews and stuff. Didn't understand that. I think the creature was supposed to look like an effects thing. You know, because it was supposed to be what he would have thought. It wasn't supposed to look like a totally real thing. But it was basically about this creature, you know, that was kind of killing people off, and, you know, but then he would wake up and be like, it was kind of like waking up and then people would be dead. I liked it. I love Reggie Bannister in the movie. I would recommend checking this out. This is just a fun, you know, creature, you know, monster movie. The next one, and this is one that I, you know, was interested in seeing this for a while. Joe Dante presented this film, and it, you know, it has in it, who was in this, Robert Picard, you know, from a number of his movies. I think that's probably why he ended up presenting the movie, because he was in this. And it's Trail of Blood, and it's an interesting movie. It's basically about these group of these kids going camping in the woods and end up stumbling upon these two dead bodies. And then this guy and his girlfriend are basically like, oh, you killed him. And he has a gun and is like basically going to kill him. And he's like, no, we didn't. We just found him too. And it's basically like the guy and his girlfriend are like, the guy is basically this killer, and he's sort of like tormenting these kids. The guy was from Anna Rifkin TV show Look. He played the homeless guy in it. He was really good in this. He was the best thing in the movie. Robert Picard's character was kind of strewn throughout it, though. Like, you could tell it was done in like 2 or 3 days, maybe. Didn't really do too much. He was like kind of this FBI guy with this. Him and his partner were basically trying to find Robert Picard's character. But to me, they were kind of like bumbling around in the woods, and I didn't feel like they really felt like finding the guy, because it kind of felt like I really felt like they were shot later or something, because they didn't seem to really be like interacting with anything, and they didn't end up hearing anything. Like, to me, that kind of stuff was bothering me a little bit, because like I felt like they would have heard some screams and things like that, but they were just sort of bumbling around and talking about stuff. I don't know, but to me though, I thought this was pretty good. But like I said though, it's basically about these kids dealing with, being captive by these, these crazy couple in the woods. For these kind of movies though, I like couple stuff is really good, but kind of was a little everything's fallen. It was a little unbalanced though. The next one from Image is Stepdogs. Yeah, it's Image. Is Stepdogs. And this I really want to see this because I always like these kind of dog movies. But the talking dogs though was not in the heads. Like if you've seen Homeward Bound and things like that. It was like the animating the mouse, and sometimes that's a little peculiar to watch that just a little bit. This movie is basically like Home Alone. It reminds me a little bit of like or even more like Remote, like a Moonbeam film or something. It really reminds me of a lost 1990s film, like mid-90s film that kind of was lost. It's about this it was basically about this girl who was an actress, ends up getting married to this guy, and they lived in Hollywood, and they end up moving out to this cabin out in, like, I think it was in Canada. So I think it took place in, there goes another one, but I think it was supposed to take, I don't know if it was supposed to be in Canada or not. I know that's where they filmed the movie, but they end up getting there, and they end up, the kids end up staying together with the babysitter. The couple ends up going on a honeymoon because they just got married, and the assistant of the one who was the actress, basically has been fired because she stopped acting now, and ends up wanting to steal this diamond from the one who's in the safe. And it's basically about these two crooks that are kind of like Harry and Marv in Home Alone, kind of bumbling around outside, kind of spying on the kids and spying on everything, trying to find a time to steal this thing. And it involves, though, this one, the dog setting the traps and things like that. I thought it was a fun movie, though. I think especially, kids would like it. And also, if you love those kind of 90s movies, you'd like this. To me, though, I really liked it. And the next one I got from Image as well is Mischief Night. This was a really cool one. This is basically about this this girl who was in an accident with her mother, and by witnessing what she saw in this car wreck, she ended up basically going blind. But it's like it's basically she could any moment be able to see again. It's like some kind of a mental thing that's keeping her from seeing. And it's basically about, on Mischief Night, like in the beginning of the movie, you end up seeing, Charlie O'Connor and this girl that he's with end up getting killed in this house. And this is years later in the same house. And the girl is there with her father, and the father has gone out at night. And you see the character in this movie basically sneaking around outside the house. They get in there and basically just find out that this girl is blind, and are basically sort of screwing around with her. They're sneaking around the house, and they're sneaking around for a while. And that's kind of the interesting thing about this movie, is the character who cannot see these people, doesn't know where they are, and basically trying to survive the night. And people who come around, of course, get killed and that kind of stuff. I thought the actress, though, who played the blind girl, really, really did a good job. Like, I would definitely love to see her do more movies and things like that from this, because she did a really good performance. And when you see these kind of movies, a lot of times this kind of person, this kind of a role, the performance would just be kind of like, but in this one was really good. I thought everybody did a really good job in this. The father in this movie too, I kept on thinking what I knew him from. He played the father in the movie The Good Son. But I would definitely check this one out. This is a really pretty good horror movie, and I love that Image puts these slip covers on them. They do a really good job, giving these horror movies a really cool look to them. The next one from Magnolia. And this one is from the director of the guy who was in, VHS, and who was in You're Next, the actor in that. The one who was in VHS who was, talking to the girl in the webcam. And this is basically, he directed this movie, and he wrote the outline to the movie. The movie technically has no script. When I first started watching, I was thinking, this is an improv movie. Like, I could tell right away, just because, when you watch improv and things like that, there's just this free-flowing kind of not acting feel to it. It's kind of just living the moment. I like improv myself, personally. The movie, though, is called Drinking Buddies, which stars Olivia Wilde and, Anna Kendrick, from Pitch Perfect, and Ron Livingston from Office Space. I will say, for some reason, Conjuring, for some reason, no matter what, I always keep seeing him from Office Space, like when I think about him. The movie, though, is basically about, Olivia Wilde and she's working at this microbrewery, and she ends up liking the one guy that she works with, or sort of liking. They're kind of hitting on each other and kind of flirting with each other the whole movie. And Ron Livingston's her boyfriend, and they're not really getting along too well. It's kind of like a relationship thing, but dealing with kind of all the stuff that's going on, because like the guy that Olivia Wilde's sort of hitting on, and they're hitting on each other, is with Anna Kendrick's character, and it's just one of those kind of relationship movies about kind of living like a week or two in the life of these characters. For the most part, it jumps around to different points though as well. I really liked it. I like Olivia Wilde. I like the cast of this movie. And like I said, though, it's all an improv movie, so it kind of is interesting to see people, what they just come up with and things like that. I liked it. Ty West as well, who's the director of, House of the Devil and a number of movies, The Innkeepers. He has a part in this movie as well. The next one from Comedy Central, this is, Bill Cosby's first comedy special, I believe 30 years, and he's pretty much retired, especially because like movies I haven't seen in movies in a long time. The person who directed this movie is the person who directed Meteor Man, and I thought this was a pretty decent special. His stuff is if you know Bill Cosby, it's more clean. It's not like dirty humor or anything like that. And to me, I don't mind clean humor and stuff like that. To me, I think sometimes I like when you can do a movie like things like Napoleon Dynamite and things like that. To me, though, it was just cool to see Bill Cosby again doing another special. I would love to see him do another film at some point. I always loved him in movies. Ghost Dad, people give that movie a lot of talk down about it. It's not like an amazing movie, but it was a fun movie. But I've always been a fan of Bill Cosby. I think if you like Bill Cosby and you like his comedy specials, that what he's done in the past, I would check this out. Now this one is interesting. This is James Franco's movie that he directed. This is from a Millennium. This is As I Lay Dying. This is based on the book by William Faulkner. It's a classic book. I don't know if I read it in school or not, but I always remembered hearing about it. It's basically about James Franco's, and his family, and his mother ends up dying, and they end up having to get the mother back to where she was from, bringing the coffin, getting it back, and going on the journey. The thing about this movie that was kind of weird was the choices in editing that was made, and what they did with it, because they kept doing split screen, and they kept doing it throughout the whole movie, or for most of it, and it was taking me out of the movie. It was kind of like, I don't know, I don't like that. To me, it's fine to do it a little bit, and it works in small doses, but they kept on doing like split screen, and then they'd have like the screen would be blacked out there, and then you'd see something, and then they'd slide it over, and they kept doing it so much. And like after I watched it, I kept on like sort of seeing the whole world through split screen, because it was like throwing me out so much. I don't know, I feel like I'd love to see a cut of this movie without the split screen. I don't like the split screen. I hope that James Franco's like other movies that he's doing, I hope he doesn't, like, that's not something that he likes to do. I don't know. If anyone's watched it, I'd like to hear what you thought about the split screen. Because as a movie, the stuff that's happening and the acting and everything was good. It's cool to see Danny McBride, too, in a real serious role. Everybody in this was playing way serious stuff. Some of the side characters and things like that who did mainly comedy things. I liked it for that standard, but there was just the split screen stuff just got out of hand, in my opinion. The next one, Image as well as a double pack. It's a 3D Blu-ray set which has 3D the Sun and 3D Mars. It's basically, the first one, the 3D Sun is basically looking at the Sun when they went up to space to get actual 3D images of the Sun. I believe I remember when that was happening, and it's basically, you're kind of like getting to the end of the movie, 3D thing, where they show you, I believe they show these at the Science Center, I think. Or the Air and Space Museum, or something like that. The 3D Mars was basically, which I liked a lot better, which was, because like the 3D Sun one had a lot of these kind of like computer graphics. There's a lot of that. The 3D Mars one was pretty cool, though. It was about the expedition of sending the rover to Mars. And there's just a little documentary on it, building the thing and how they got it up there, and, showing the, 3D images when they were going around Mars. To me, though, I always think it would be kind of cool to do a movie or something like that when they get this thing there and then they see some kind of a creature. Like every time when they go across the thing, I'm expecting to see some kind of like a creature jump into the screen. I know it's not happening because this is, a true documentary. but I still would be kind of cool if you saw that happen. But, you know, for 3D, though, if like you have a 3D TV, I would definitely recommend that. Of course, you can watch them in non-3D as well. Now, the last one I want to talk about, and I talked about this as well, is All-American Christmas Carol. This is, you know, I actually now have a official DVD of it. I talked about it because I watched it originally on streaming. You know, this is a really cool, you know, directed by my friend Ron Carlson. You know, and you actually can see me in this movie. I have two little funny little gags in the movie. I was happy with how this turns out. It's got a whole bunch of people in it. Taryn Manning, you know, who's from Orange is the New Black, you know, is on Netflix now. Beverly D'Angelo from Christmas Vacation. You know, Wendy McLean Calvary, I believe that's how you say her name, who's from Reno 911 and Bridesmaids. But it's basically a take on the Christmas Carol story. The Charles Dickens Christmas Carol story, and this is about a woman who's in a trailer park and basically has had all these different boyfriends and kids from different boyfriends, and her basically seeing, you know, the ghost of her past and present and future, you know, and seeing how, you know, what she did and her mistakes and things like that. I enjoyed this. I think people, you know, to me, this is a really pretty good Christmas movie. There's not a lot of kind of Christmas movies that go to these kind of, have that feel of the classic 80s, 90s ones. And to me, this one did. And I thought it was a pretty good one because, you know, a lot of Christmas movies are kind of like the Lifetime movies and that kind of stuff. And this was not that. So anyway, though, guys, thanks a lot for watching the new DVD Blu-ray update. And I'll see you guys later. If you haven't seen the Black Friday video, definitely check that one out as well.